What's going on, guys? So on today's video, I'm going to teach you how to properly sight in your bow, whether you got a new bow or a new sight. So stay tuned. So first thing you need to make sure that you've done after you've bought your bow is you've got it properly tuned. So I shoot a drop away rest. So what you need to do is have your archery tech make sure that that's tuned up, that it's timed properly, and it's ready to go. Your D loop is set in proper positioning, because if that stuff's not tuned properly, there's no way you're going to be consistent. So you're just kind of wasting your time trying to sight in your bow. So that's your first step that you need to make sure that you have done. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to take this old sight off and I'm going to put my new sight on, and then we'll start throwing arrows down range. So you've got your sight mounted, you're ready to go. Next thing you need to do is find yourself a good range with a good backstop. I've got a pretty good backstop right here, so I'm not too worried about losing arrows. I'm also going to start really close to target. So I'm only at 10 yards right here starting out, and I don't need to go any further than that until I know that I'm good to go. That way it just minimizes me possibly losing and breaking arrows. So I've got a 5-spot setup, and I know my bow is pretty consistent, so I'm going to shoot different spots. And what you want to do is you want to shoot 3 arrows to find a consistency. When you're sighting in your bow, you want to find a consistency. If you're all over the place, it does you absolutely no good to sight in your bow, period, because you have no clue where you're shooting. So you need to find a consistent pattern, and if you need to shoot one spot, that's perfectly fine. Figure out where the grouping is, and then adjust your sight accordingly. I shoot different spots until I get out to a further distance, just so I don't run my arrows. But it's the same idea. I find that consistent grouping, and then I move my sight accordingly. So let's throw some 3 arrows down here and see exactly where I'm at. So that's pretty darn close to middle. Actually, that's pretty good for first starting out here. So let's shoot a couple more and see exactly where we're at. Alright, so looks like my grouping is consistently low and right. So what I can do with that, I'm going to move my sight, the whole sight housing itself, down and then to the right just a little bit. Think about chasing the grouping with your sight. I'm going to sight my whole housing in up to 20 yards. So I'm going to move the entire sight to sight it in for 20 yards, which will be my top pin. And then after that, I'm on side to side. After I'm set up at 20 yards, moving the whole housing. After that, all I need to do is adjust each pin individually to each yardage. And that's just an up and down adjustment, and then you're good to go. So I'm going to pull these arrows, we'll move back to 20. So when I'm adjusting this down, my 2 settings are right here on the side and right here on top. So this side screw is going to control my up and down movement. All I'm going to do is loosen that just a little bit, just enough to allow the sight to move. I'm going to move that sight. Oh, that was way too far. Ooh. Move that back down to where it was, and then jet down just slightly. So you see how it got kind of sticky on me and moved a little bit too far. That's where you just need to make sure you remember where your sight was to start. So there's that. Now we're going to adjust side to side. Remember, we've got to go right. So adjusted that, loosen it up. Then we're going to adjust this a little bit, one line over to the right. Tighten it back down. Now we're going to be pretty close when we go out to 20. So we're going to move over to 20, see how it looks. So now we've got it pretty darn close at 10 yards. That's all I want. I just want to get it super close. Then I can move out to 20 and get it perfect. So let's throw some arrows down and see exactly where I'm hitting at 20. So far, I'm perfect side to side, but I'm low. So what that means is that my adjustment wasn't enough. My adjustment down was not enough. So I'm gonna shoot one more, make sure it's the exact same spot. Then I'm gonna move my sight down even further, which will bring my arrow up. All right, so those are basically the exact same spot. So when you're doing this, you really need to make sure that your form is perfect. Your peep sight alignment is exactly the same every time. How you hold the bow, how you release, your follow through. Hold that bow in place until that arrow hits the target. Everything needs to be perfect while you're doing this so you can be as consistent as possible and take as much of the human error out of the equation as we can. That way we can get the bow perfectly sighted in, and then we'll be ready just to practice and just send arrows down range. So let me make this adjustment real quick, and we'll make sure this is perfect before we move out to 30. So those arrows were perfect. I don't need to make an adjustment. The only thing now is just to put arrows down range and make sure myself is perfect. So that's as good. That's pretty happy with that. So that's the biggest adjustment that you need to make, is making sure your housing is on. And then after that, it's pretty simple because it's just up and down adjustments with your pins on down. I like to set mine in 10-yard increments, because you start falling off pretty quick. And most butt bows are fast enough that if you only set them at 5-yard increments, your pins are going to be too close. So I've got a 5-pin sight, so 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 is how I set up my pins, and it works pretty good for me. So that's what you need to think about. Stay consistent, be perfect, take as much of the human error out as you can. Make sure your bow is tuned before you even try to do this. Send 3 arrows or more down range to find a good grouping, and you'll be good to go. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to keep up with our future content. See you on the next video.